So this is CBD and advertising, and we've got an amazing panel with us here today. My name's Samantha Miller, and I'm honored to be able to facilitate some questions to them, and then, of course, enable you guys to ask some questions as well. To begin, let's just go down the row and have everybody.
We build extraction labs, and I've been in the industry for about 7 years. I started off helping build labs in California when MJ first went recreationally legal. I got to go do a lot of really fun stuff and be up in Humboldt County for a while, and been selling capital equipment and doing manufacturing for the better part of my career. Marketing to the CBD and MJ industries, but I also have a lot of insight on where I've seen businesses thrive and succeed, watching them grow from the ground up, be on the manufacturing side, all the way to the retail side.
Thank you.
Good morning. I am Jessica Arendt. Unmasking because I'm facing this way, and I want you to be able to hear me. I am the Chief Compliance Officer for Cannabidiol Life. We are an education-based brand, first and foremost, and then we go to product. We had 2 years in the market of nothing but education before we ever put a product into the market. I've been in the cannabis industry professionally for the last 12 years. My first project was proudly with Carlos Santana. I have been in hemp now for 6 years.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Desiree Ginto. I'm with Earth Club Mariah's Farm. I've been in the sustainable and renewable energy space for about 10 years. I started in marketing and sales. That's where my expertise lies. I entered the cannabis space about 2 years ago with Mariah's Farm.
Hi, I'm Trey Tiarina. I'm kind of independent from any company right now. I'm an opportunist, if you will, in the industry. I have been participating in the industry for about 5 years, almost 6 years now, mainly focused on education and secondarily focused on building relationships and facilitating B2B relationships.
Good morning. My name is Christy Price. I'm the founder of Karma Media, Inc. We are the parent company of Black Cannabusiness Magazine, which is a premier business-to-business magazine for Black people who are doing business, and people of color who are doing business in the cannabis industry. We're founded in 2019. The magazine was launched in 2019. We've been in existence for about 2.5 years. And I come from a background of other formerly prohibited industries. I was in tobacco for about 8 years, and before that I was in alcohol for about 10 years. And I did about 3 years with energy drinks. So the nuances of marketing and advertising in industries that have those challenges and barriers is what my specialty encompasses.
Sorry. All right. And thank you, guys. So Christy, let's begin with you since we ended with you.
Sure.
As the publisher of an industry magazine, you see brands and founders all day long. Can you tell us a few of the main mistakes CBD founders and brands are making in terms of their marketing, whether it's print marketing or online?
Oh, that's a good question. And I think kind of what I finished saying is the biggest mistake. I think if you have never marketed or advertised in a formerly prohibited industry that has legal, social, and other implications to the messaging that you're putting out, you have to really be a little bit more targeted than you would in other consumer industries. One of the things that tobacco and alcohol really got right was niche marketing, which is identifying who their consumers were, identifying what their needs were, and then creating messages for them. So that general communications, general advertising and marketing just doesn't really land very well in our space. You really have to know what, and because like I think some of the other speakers talk about from an educational perspective, it's so much more of a responsibility that we have in this industry to not only advertise, but to be honest about in advertising and to be educational in our messaging as well. So those are a few of the mistakes I've seen that a lot of founders are so passionate about their relationship with cannabis that's the message that they put out, not recognizing that most citizens in this country don't have that same experience or that same passion. So a lot of it is about benefits, talking about the good, dispelling the myths, and then figuring out who your consumers are so that you can market to them specifically.
Thank you, that's great. In fact, that I feel almost leans into education. If there's anything you'd like to add on that piece, or if anyone else would like to chime in.
I'm going to add to that, as a matter of fact. So I also come from niche marketing. Prior to being in this industry, I was in the tequila industry. And bringing any kind of spirit into this country, it's state by state, which is similar to how the CBD industry functions now. It is a great blueprint for where we're going and how we're moving through this brave new world, if you will. And it will give you the guide and the course for the do's and the don'ts. One of the most important things to remember in advertising, don't ever make claims. Do not let your consumer put up testimonials. The FDA will shut you down.
Thank you. Anybody else want to add a little bit?
I think I'll just add that if you are looking to get into the business, education, in my opinion, comes first. I think a lot of these people here would agree. It's not only educating your potential customer, it's educating yourself to constantly get the best information, the quality information, and obviously relay that to your consumers so that they can make the best choices for their own personal health if they can.
Yeah. And it's not really unlike any other emerging market or emerging industry. It's new. So the first part of it, most of it, is educating. And the more you educate and you build, the more you educate or able to educate, the more trust you build with your consumers, with your readers, with your buyers, and the more likely they are to not only to trust you and to purchase from you or to support what you're doing, but to also share your brand, share your message with others, because you've already kind of laid a foundation in that framework. And it's really, and if you are advertising and marketing in this space, it comes with a lot of responsibility. So understanding what the ramifications are for false advertising, understanding that there are people who are looking for any word, any symbol, anything, any inclination that you're doing something halfway illegal, even if it's misinterpreted, that's going to cause some problems for you. So it's figuring out what your message is, making sure that it flies, it passes the test with, the legalities of your state or your city or your municipality, and then just remembering that, you have to say that same message at least 7 times before anyone's going to remember. So don't think that, I've been saying this for a year, it's over. When I was with Red Bull, or with my energy drink here in Houston, we sample 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every year, and we only touch 1% of the population in Houston. Now to us, it felt like we're working all day, every day, everybody should know who we are and what we do. That's not the case. So taking a step back, testing your message, testing your advertising, testing your logo, testing how, getting focus groups. When I say focus group, you don't have to pay people. It can be friends, family, whatever. Getting people's reactions and responses before you invest in money, websites and logos and marketing companies and digital agencies. It's really important to know that the message you're putting out, the image that you're putting out is what you want to sustain you. That's going to take you the long way.
I think that's such a great point, and it's so important on so many levels, right? You want to be fiscally smart. You want to make sure that your message is perceived in the same way that you intended it, almost like texting someone, maybe the intent come off different. It's also important too, with that education piece, I think so much, because there is a lot of misconception and there is a lot of stigma around this type of industry. So ensuring that you're communicating and you're educating people in the same way and having that same statement over and over again ensures that some of the skepticism starts to diminish. And so we're actually boosting this new energy in ways that we might not even realize we're doing.
Right.
I'm going to move on to social media. So social media has become harder to navigate as the CBD market has exploded. And many companies are worried about getting their accounts shut down permanently, so they undermarket or they don't market at all. What advice would you give those companies? And I'm going to leave that for anyone who would like to answer that. Otherwise, I'm calling you.
Well, I can talk to this directly because I've had this happen to me. So, as I said, we sell machines. And one would think selling machines, specifically when your website is pretty scrubbed of like any kind of thing that would throw you into a market, right? Google shut us down, and we went into what last year, and we went into what I call Google hell, because Google no longer has help desk in Redwood City in California. They have help desk in Mumbai. That's not, the folks in Mumbai are great, they're awesome, but they're reading from a script, and there is a language barrier. Even though they're fluent in English, they don't understand things. So we talked about CO2, carbon dioxide, being the solvent that we use to extract oils out of plant material. We were told that CO2 was a drug. I don't literally know how to argue with that. And then we were told, well, this will be elevated to our next level of management, which of course never happened, and they're in Mumbai, so you can't get to the next level of management. So we ended up spending a large amount of money, and finally on experts, and that's kind of the point of this story. So there's a lot of people out there on the web that claim to be experts in cannabis marketing or whatever, and they're not. They are just there to take your money. They will take $4,000 from you and $475 a month to manage your SEO, and they don't do anything that you can't teach yourself to do yourself. It takes a few hours of your time to do it. There's some amazing websites out there. LinkedIn Learning has a site that they bought called lynda.com that has, it's $24 a month or something. It's got amazing college level classes in it. These are not fake, DIY classes. These are real experts telling you how to manage Google AdWords and stuff like that. So it's not to denigrate anybody in the marketing side like these women over here that have absolute experience on how to do your demographics and write to reach your audience. My personal experience was, don't just Google somebody and have them pop up as a cannabis expert, because they don't do anything for you. Having said that, I've also, I don't want to seem too cynical, because as these women have pointed out, your brand and your customers are everything. And without that, you don't have a business. And that's something that really, we'll maybe get to later, but that's where I've seen people on the manufacturing side really fail, is that they don't have customers. And without customers, you don't have a business. So you have to figure out some way to do it.
So I've seen a lot of brands come into the market. Tequila brands, vacation brands. I've been in marketing and advertising. I started with Univision Television 25 years ago. I'm really old. I am. And this has been a very challenging industry. Every brand that I have seen succeed, and keep in mind, I've been doing this since the first one marched in the front door of a manufacturing facility and said, I want my own label and brand. Your first circle of influence are your own friends and family, your own experience. If you don't live it, you don't breathe it, you aren't washing in it, eating it, bathing in it, whatever the heck in it, it's not for you. Because you have to firmly believe in it 1,000%. And then you are the walking, talking billboard. That's what social media is. People go into social media not to see what you continually post. So the failure that I see over and over is the guy that sits behind the computer and just puts up product, and puts up product, and puts up product. Okay, that consumer has no reason to pull a trigger and take an action. None. Why? There's thousands of them just like that. What makes yours different? They want to relate to you. They want to relate to my dog. They want to relate to your kid, your mother, your grandmother, your father, your sister, whomever. People are looking to connect, especially in the world of COVID. Hello, we're completely disconnected and alienated. That's why we use social media. It keeps us connected to our tribe. Your tribe is going to trust you. They're not going to trust my Starbucks cup because it looks like 9 million other Starbucks cups. They trust you. The key is to make it your lifestyle. Put it out there and talk about it. Live it, breathe it, show where it works. Don't ever make a claim, okay? If I say this one time, it's 1,000,000 times over. Do not make a claim, because the FDA is combing every website, every content, every social media profile, every review, because they want to take us out. They want to take you out. because they don't want you making it in your bathtub, and they don't want you making it in your kitchen, and they don't want you making it in a dirty environment because Mrs. So-and-so's kid can have peanut butter, but my kid can't, okay? And this is what we're up against. Use your social media like you do every day when you're talking to your friends. Put your product in. Talk about your product. It is a dance of who you are in relationship to how you want the world to perceive you. And the brands that I've seen succeed over the last 6 years, specifically to CBD, and the last 12 years, specifically to cannabis, are the brands that reach out and go, hey, that's my friend, and I hung out with him, and we smoked a single, and we popped some gel caps, and then we went dancing, and everybody's like, let me see what you did. Okay? That's what they're buying in for. That's what they want to see.
That's great.
So I'll play off what you're saying, just a little opposite perspective.
Yeah.
So in two of the previous industries that I worked for or in, I was not a consumer of said product. But I believed in said product because I understood the benefits of it. So whereas, and again, it all kind of depends on, and I'm kind of neutral because I don't have a cannabis brand. I represent lots of companies that do have cannabis brands. And one of the things that I've seen work very well in the instances of where the owner or the founder doesn't CBD every day or smoke every day, what have you, but maybe they had a child who was on the spectrum who benefited from CBD, and you'll start to, I mean, we're in the industry, so we know the health benefits that a lot of people are recognizing right now. And so again, it really just boils down to belief. And it really boils down to understanding how to have conversations with people from each point. The people who, because you're going to meet people who know everything and are experts about it all, and then you're going to have people who have absolutely nothing. No background, no knowledge, any of that stuff. So that's why I think whether you are consumed in it yourself as the founder, or whether or not you're in this because you have a skill set that you know you can bring to the industry that can benefit others. So I may not, need CBD oil, like my mom uses it on her arm, for example, because she has aches and pains and it works for her. That's not my experience, but I know that that's a benefit. So then as a professional, how am I taking these stories, amplifying the stories of people who, or like she was saying, we can't really do claims, but you can let people know that what the science is saying. You can let people know what people who have had experiences with CBD or certain products have had. And so to me, I think that's equally important when we're talking about advertising and marketing. And again, it's gonna always, and for a long time, same thing with other prohibited industries, a lot of what we do, a lot of the nuance is education.
Thank you. I think that's so important, and I love how you say the same thing and differently, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is make a lifestyle, whether it's your lifestyle, somebody you know's lifestyle, somebody you envision's lifestyle, and then center that brand and that advertising around that, because you can get so much when you tell a story. Right. Someone will relate to that story, right.
I think the key word here is trust.
Right.
Yes, right. Trusted resource. It's so important. All right. We're going to move from social media now to radio advertising. Do you guys think that radio advertising is dead? When is the last time you or someone you work with paid for a radio ad or even listened to local radio? And if so, then what about satellite radio? And because you're going like that, I'm calling on you.
So one day, not too long ago, I go marching into my office to hear my marketing team. They're so excited. We're going to have radio ads. And I literally turned on my heel, went out the door, and went. I really wanted to be supportive. I really did. But I come from television, and I came from Spanish language television in a time when people were like, what's that? Okay. Radio. When was the last time you actually turned on the radio? You turn on the radio in your car so you can hook up your USB cable so you can listen to what you want to listen to, because they're not going to play what you feel like listening to in the moment, okay? I don't listen to the radio, and I don't know how many people do anymore. And we were so excited, and we were going to spend $450 a month on that radio advertising. Big picture, okay. I look at that and go, well, that's a tax write-off. We'll take the hit. We ran and aired 22 times a day for 3 months. to the tune of $450 on a local advertising station for which I had return. None. I don't know about Sirius, because I don't listen to that either. I'm really subjective to my own iPod. I like music on demand, and I like TV on demand. I don't have a lot of time. People don't have a lot of time. So in my opinion and experience,
Hey, we want honesty here, right?
right. There's, for that same $450 a month, you can pay a blogger, and you can get some great content.
Any success doing pre-roll podcasts, pre-roll blogs?
I'm sorry?
Can you,
Pre-roll podcasts, like a health and wellness podcast that has a million
That's-
followers. Doing the pre-roll, at the beginning, they say our sponsors this, our sponsors that.
Yes. Because you've got a dedicated audience to that, and I'm sure this brilliant team will tell you the same thing. When you've got people who come into podcasts, they're coming in because they've already decided, okay? They're not flipping through the channels where they're like, okay, screw it, I don't want to listen to one more country song, and oh my God, no more Christmas music, okay? They're specifically going to that podcast because they're going for that information. That's brilliant advertising because it's captive audience share. But when you've got mass audience share, I am dead set against it in this modern world. You can do so much more with a blog. You can do so much more with a vlog. You can do so much more with all the tools right at your fingertips.
Yeah, I definitely agree with her in terms of that. And just to piggyback off of the podcast and the blogging, that's definitely an alternate route to social media, because social media will block you, will take you off as soon as they see something that looks like marijuana. So what I would suggest to circumvent that is to focus more on inbound marketing, blogging, having someone speak about you, just blast your knowledge on the internet to just build that trust for people to want to search you, and even podcasts. Speak on a podcast, speak about your experience with your brand, with you selling, with you posting it, with you, even the negatives, put it out there and people will want to hear you. So that's an alternate route to go if social media is not working for you. I honestly don't suggest that off the bat. I would say focus more on inbound marketing and building your credibility online, because once you have that credibility, it's easier for you to gain customers to want to come to you rather than you searching for them. That's what I would suggest.
And just for the record, you're talking about both being featured on someone else's podcast to get
Yes,
exposure,
correct.
and to start your
Right.
own
Right.
podcast should you have the audience to do so. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's really about building your, somebody said the
Relationships.
tribe, build your list. Like what's your email list look like? Because if you can do direct marketing to the people who have already signed up to say, hey, I'm interested in this brand, that you're winning there. The other thing I want to say is that, and again, this goes back to niche marketing. Radio works for some groups, some consumers. I am a satellite radio listener, and they have a lot more flexibility with advertising and marketing than, say, public radio or like the normal radio stations. So I think that, again, it's really about knowing who you're, and we always talk about our customers are like avatars or their character or whoever. Most brands have more than one. So you have more than one type of customer. You have some customers who are gonna all day in your inbox all day long. You're gonna have other people, emailing. You're gonna have other people who are looking for you on social, because on Instagram, there's a lot you can do on social. But again, it is a little bit more of a challenge, but you can do it, because I see it all the time. Have you seen cannabis on Instagram, anybody? Or CBD on Instagram? I mean, that's kind of where everyone is right now. LinkedIn. So it's not that social is just completely dead. You got to figure out how to get in where you fit in, okay, and find your customers that way. And then leverage social media to build your own list. Yeah. Take them out of there. If you find somebody on Facebook, you find somebody on Instagram, hey, go to my website. Hey, can I get your email address so I can market to you personally? That's really what it's all about. So if I were talking to a founder now, 2-3-year-old organization who's wanting to get their, because it's about brand awareness. So you got to get your brand out there. Mass marketing is really the best way to do it. If you can figure out a way to do it as inexpensively as possible, which is not necessarily paying for advertising, not necessarily paying for spots, create a mechanism for you to, it's like a cast a wide net. and grab as many, they can unsubscribe if they're not interested later. Figure out a way to get your own people. Because even when you go on other people's podcasts, they're listening to their podcast. Now there's some people might say, oh, great, you happen to be on their podcast. But again, that's their tribe. You have to have your own tribe. And I always encourage my founders too, if you're gonna be on other people's podcasts, you probably should be able to say on that podcast where people can hear you again.
Yeah.
You're on somebody's podcast once, and then what is it? So it's really about having a safe place for your customers to find you. Whether you're out there advertising yourself or somebody else is pushing you. Everyone has to know where to find you. So to me, when I think about social, I just see social media as like a trap, like a little fly trap. Everybody gets on there, I'm gonna pick off the ones I want, I'm gonna invite these people, to get to know me on a more personal level, and then that's how you kind of start to build your own audience. And that's really what's gonna have to happen sooner rather than later. Because the other thing that's going on with the industry as we expand into other states is that we're going to it's going to be saturated. Some of us are from markets already. My husband's from Oklahoma, and so anyone from Oklahoma knows that just about on almost every corner there's a dispensary right now. And it's because it was like Wild Wild West. Everyone's in there. So how do you differentiate yourself from everyone else? That's the other thing to think about. So social media, but if you are using social media, have a goal to get your own people, build your own communication portal. Whether it's a lot of brands, some of my clients have their own membership pages, which is kind of like their own little social media page, which is private just for them, almost like a Facebook group, but not on Facebook. And there are lots of options, there are lots of alternatives that are coming out like that. So I encourage everybody to kind of look into some of those alternative ways of gathering online, other than Facebook.
Yeah. I also want to just poke in one more thing. She used a word in there in her, what she was saying was, she said findable. You got to be findable. The businesses nowadays, as we see all of these macro trends pushing us to the digital world, it goes back to the trust word as well. If you're not findable online, if people can't find your brand online, it dissipates the trust almost immediately, almost instantaneously. Mm-hmm. So being findable online is just as equally important as being active online.
I think
that goes back to SEO. I think somebody was talking about search engine.
Yeah.
Larry was talking about SEO.
Did you want to touch on SEO a little bit?
Well, that's something else that you have complete control over. Like, so if you're working with someone, or like Gary was recommending, you kind of do your own research to figure out how search engine optimization works. That's very helpful, because in that way, when we talk about being findable, Google me, when people say that, that's because they know that if you put in Christy Price or Karma Media Inc. or Black Cannabis Magazine, I'm gonna pop up, because my SEO, don't do it now, y'all, I'm just saying. I don't know if that's gonna really work. But what I'm saying, we're just getting started with our magazine. But that's really what it's all about. People pop up at the top because they have optimized people search for them. It's not gonna be hard to find them, because they've invested in making sure that if you put in these phrases, these keywords, this state, this location, this brand, this service, I'm gonna pop up. So think about that. What are your key phrases? What are your keywords for you and for your brand and for what you want to get out there? Research it. It's free. It's cheap. If it's not free, it's pretty inexpensive. Go to Fiverr. Look for people who are professionals in that space and play with it. And it's a trial and error. That's the thing. SEO is not instantaneous. Mm-hmm. 6 weeks minimum before you might even start to see some change. So patience is important. Marketing and advertising is truly a faith-based industry. But if you've done your research and you have put in the time, you're going to make some mistakes. It's not going to be perfect right away. But if you know that going in, then you can kind of temper yourself, and prepare yourself for the long haul, because it's not a flash in the pan. Not this industry, and not marketing and advertising.
Our company is built on SEO, literally. One day, the owner of my company, who happens to be 32 years old, this kid woke up, he's a bartender, and he goes, there is just no information about this stuff anywhere. And so he starts going to the University of Israel, to Meshulam, and chasing Hanush, which are the two primary godfathers, doctors of this entire science. And he starts following Paige Figge, Charlotte Figge, that's Charlotte's Web. If you don't know who that is, go look that up, because this is the core of this industry, okay? And he built this website. So he'd go tend bar. I swear to God, this is true. He'd go tend bar, and then he'd go home and sit at Starbucks or wherever, and for hours, he was building this website. And he went from a traction of a couple hundred to a couple thousand. Now we get hundreds of thousands. But that is 5 years later, where I have 2 kids who sit round the clock and do nothing but blog, vlog, take my stupid TikTok videos and do stuff with that, and my stupid live videos and do stuff with that. Okay, TikTok, let me tell you, it's brilliant. It is not an overnight thing. It absolutely is not instant success. When you go out there and you see these companies and you're like, I made millions and I got all these farms and I have all that. No, no, that's not realistic. Realistic is start small, be steady, be consistent, stick with it, and keep going forward. And when somebody comes along and goes, oh, I did that better, you just go, you know what, I'm gonna do me. The same way you do when you get up and do you every day personally, you do you. Mm-hmm. And you keep going forward. The most important recommendation I can make is education. When I stepped into this industry 6 years ago, I was a cannabis consumer, and I went, what do you mean you can't get high from these plants? What is this? I want to do this. And then I saw the first child seize, and I saw the magic happen, and I still get goosebumps, and I still want to cry. It was life-changing, and I went, oh, this is it for the rest of my life. This is my thing. And it took me 47 years to find it. And here I am. And every day I get up and somebody else is doing it better. Somebody else is smarter. Somebody else has more information. Somebody else has more data and more research. Somebody else published a book. And I go, oh. And then I go, wait a minute. That's somebody else. I can only do me. And so I go about my path. Consistency, the right education from the right resources. Don't believe everything you read online. When you see it pop up and it goes, it's legal in all 50 states. No, 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 it's not. Okay, it's not. Do your research, do your fact checking, that's key, and get the right education. Make your consumers aware of the right information, because that's everything to our credibility.
Thank you. I had a bunch more questions, but I just looked at the time and we only have about 7 more minutes, so I want to open it up to you guys. Does anybody have, I'm sorry? Oh, perfect. Oh, okay. Does anybody have a question? Yes?
Hi, okay, so you mentioned that you can share people's stories. Hold on, guys, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can you wait for the microphone to start talking, because it's the only way we're recording it. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so you mentioned that you can share people's stories with using their CBD, but then you said you can't share their testimonies online. That's just if we post it. So they can put reviews on your website. They can make claims it works, right?
It's a very, very, very fine line, okay? You don't want to put up a testimonial or allow them to put up a testimonial that says, it cured my cancer. No, 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 okay? You don't want them to put up a testimonial that is absolutely definitive. If that testimonial says, I think, it may be possible, it's likely, suggestive terms, but never definitive, not yet.
I want to,
Is that a claim? To help my risk?
Yes, that's a claim. I believe it helped. So my yeah, so when you get the test, this is how I do it, okay? So I'll get the testimonial and my social media team will be like, look at how great this is. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Please send that back and ask them to change this word. All you have to do is put in, I believe. And it's as easy as saying to that consumer, listen, we can't say for sure. You could have not eaten sugar that day and had the same, we have to play, right, devil's advocate. So we simply say, could you maybe change that to I think or I believe? And they're always happy to do it.
I think feel is a good word too, right?
Sorry?
I think feel might be a good word too. Oh, is that me?
I think it's him.
Oh.
My question is, on your brand, if it's named, for example, like cure or heal, you won't get in trouble? Because that's the name of your brand?
One more time.
If your name,
If the brand is called Healing Something,
no, if it's called, like, the name is called Heal or Cure, CBD, you don't get in trouble for that, right? Okay, thanks.
But you still need to be very, very careful about this. I mean,
And
I
how
think
you use it.
she hit I cannot, I mean, that story I told you about CO2, that was a minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of things. But 7 or 8 years ago, when I was first getting into the industry, there were some major issues in California with medical marijuana where people came in and said some things that they should not have been saying. And the FDA does not play around. I mean, that's like getting in trouble with the IRS. I mean, they will come in and shut you down severely, you know?
November 2019, 15 warning letters went out from the FDA, for which I was called in to correct 5. And it cost, believe you me, it cost them a lot of money to correct those problems, because I'm not cheap. And this year, the FDA gave them 30 days for corrective action. So what that means is the FDA is going to give you a letter, and it's going to say, here's everything you just did wrong. Correct it, and then send us a report on how you're going to correct it, because we're going to check back. So you have 30 days to create those corrective actions, send the letter into the FDA, FDA looks at it, and then the FDA literally watches you like a hawk for the next 90 days. I happen to be an FDA-registered brand. We welcome that. We are that transparent. But when the FDA is out looking now, they don't give you 30 days. They give you 72 hours and a $10,000 fine.
Right, and just to be very fair to the FDA, because there's a tendency in this industry to sort of hold the FDA in contempt and think that they're big brother. But I mean, we really want this, right? We don't want, let's forget CBD and marijuana and all that. We don't want our moms or our brothers or ourselves to be buying the next electroshock home therapy treatment thing. So, you know, it's a good thing in the long run.
Absolutely a good thing in the long run.
It is, and I think it even hits on that education piece, right? So there is that money factor. Nobody wants to spend another $10,000 or $10,000 in general if they don't have to, right? But you have to think, if you're going to be part of this industry, we want to make sure that we're doing it right, and we're setting the stage for doing it right, compliance being right.
We call that a gold standard, and I'll give you examples. I have seen product come out of this industry where there was absolutely no CBD in the product, but it was loaded, and okay, I'm gonna break out into a sweat. It was loaded with 1,000 milligrams of melatonin. If you give that to a toddler, you'll kill it. I have seen product made with extracts that came out of facilities. I came from Colorado, and I would go out and inspect these facilities because I wanted to know how the stuff was being made and what was going in these people's mouths. I'm an advocate for children and safety. And I saw material, extract material, that was exposed to rodents, pests, mites. I saw filthy environments. I saw no gloves, no hair covers, and I'm thinking, okay, you got what in that material? And somebody's eating it or putting it on their body. I have seen, it's snake oil. I've seen product, I've pulled it off a shelf, taken it, had it tested, nothing. I've seen product where they said it wasn't made with grapeseed oil, which, by the way, will kill a dog, and I killed a dog. This industry is full of great players. And this industry is full of some not so great players because there is a fine line between greed and gain. And the why matters so very much. So we err on the side of compliance and regulation because that's the only thing that's going to take us down a road of absolute safety and certainty and wipe all that garbage out of the market.
So true. Do we have an, yep.
Shut it down. But we talk about regulatory, and right now in the CBD industry, and for the last 3 years, sometimes it just feels like who's in front of you that day, like it's the business of everybody, and you're like, oh my gosh, we were in trouble for this last week, and now we are, and you know, it just kind of feels like you get different judges in court. Do you guys see regulations coming soon, and where would that, like, is it all FDA? Like, how will we be in tune with that moving forward? And then I have one side question. You guys talked about blogs there's a lot more freedom in blocks to write different stuff, right? Like, it seems like that. I just wanted to make sure, you know, like, I feel like I listen to blogs all the time. They're like, oh yeah, it does this and this and this and this person says. Is there more freedom there, or do you have to watch also?
Well, I can speak to the regulatory stuff pretty specifically, and I'll do that first. There's a lot of things that people talk about in manufacturing, and it genuinely gets on my nerves. And this is not being cynical or anything. This is coming from, I've been in factories since I was 24 years old. People will tout, we're ISO certified. Well, ISO self-certification means that you've documented stuff. It sounds cool, but unless you're Boeing or McDonnell Douglas or Exxon, ISO certification is, it's nonsense in this industry. And I don't mean that because I'm being cynical. People will claim that they are GMP certified. GMP is good manufacturing practices. Now, there are some auditors out there that will do a GMP audit for you, but there is no such thing as GMP certification. GMP is a set of principles that says basically you're doing the right things. And you can look it up at gmp.org. I mean, this is real manufacturing stuff. This isn't just for the hemp industry or the marijuana industry. This applies to Nabisco, right? The FDA is probably not going to be doing any kind of major regulatory movements on the hemp or marijuana industry until marijuana is federally legal or decriminalized, at which point there probably will be. Because then it will make sense, because as has been pointed out, on a state-by-state level, there's no real way for the FDA to control that. And as being part of the manufacturing industry, it gets very discouraging, because you do read claims, like she said, where people will say things like, oh, we've got this state-of-the-art facility and blah, 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 blah. And you go there and you're like, you've got a tub of ethanol.
Yes. And a hot plate.
Yeah, and a hot plate.
Oh my gosh.
Right? And, you know, so there is that. And so you want to be careful. Now, having said that, you can go to gmp.org and you can build a facility and you can look at your local health codes that apply to restaurants and things like that, and apply those. You can put in your rodent traps, you can wear hairnets, you can wear gloves, you can make sure that you're using all stainless steel, that you're wiping everything down with isopropyl alcohol, blah, 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 blah. It's all doable. And the last thing I'll add, just to tag onto something that was mentioned earlier about blogs and stuff, and then I'll let the experts talk about that, and they've said this, is that, and I've done it, it's a lot of work to create that stuff. You don't just sit down and go, oh, I'm going to write 1 or 2 blogs and everybody's going to love me because I'm Gary. And, you know, I'm lucky if my kids call me enough, right? The idea that a bunch of strangers are going to read my blogs is sort of naive on my part, right? And so it takes a lot of work and a lot of cross-referencing and a lot of work on your SEO. And I don't want to diminish what marketing professionals do on SEO at all, so I'm going to be very, very clear about that. But I do think it's incumbent upon business owners and small business people, such as myself, to go back and understand just what is involved with it, so you can at least have an intelligent conversation about it.
Agreed. The next panel, by the way, is about regulation and compliance, so you might want to stick around for that.
Yes.
I have one more question. Does anyone else have?
Let me see. Does anyone else have a question before? Okay, floor is yours.
Hey. So, I guess, what do you do, like, when you're doing stuff right and other people aren't, and you're like, because we hear so many times, like, we have nano, and I'm like, you have a blender, you know? Like, they'll be like, oh, we have, you know, a bunch of different stuff, and you're like, no, that's not, you know, like, we have a patented technology, like, what's your patent number? Like, you don't want to bash people to your customers. I don't feel like that's a good look, but how do you fight that when people can make claims that they just, whatever they want, you know? Like, what do you do to kind of, like, separate yourself a little bit? I guess I'm not talking into this at all.
I could answer that like on a salesy question, but that's like, I don't sell retail products, so I'm going to defer to people who...
The answer lies in your own methodologies, attributes, and values, okay? You walk up to any grocery store shelf, and you're buying toothpaste, okay? This happened to me last night. My husband usually does this. And I literally stood in front of that shelf. 7, 8 minutes went by. Well, I'm scratching my head going, what in the tarnation? Okay, I'm really trying to keep my language clean. You're in the same situation. Your consumer's marching in, and there's the shelf, okay? The differentiators lie in your own circle of influence and trust, first and foremost, and then creating, basically, your own trust pilot. It's that roadmap of why your brand is what it is. So, we're going ISO CGMP certification next year. We're going for that because we're in the state of Florida. We are regulated by our agricultural department. I am FDA registered, and I do have a patented extraction methodology. But I am also 6 years into this industry where we've learned a lot, and we see a road forward that's unique to us. It's not his roadhouse, it's not their wheelhouse, but it's mine, right? And I have people that go, why are you doing that? And why do you bother? Okay, because that is what I believe in. And this is my product and my brand, and this is how I want to go to market with it. And you are yours. So I believe the ticket is go out there and tell them what's great about you. Don't ever downplay your competition. And don't ever combat your competition. That's wasted energy. Negative energy takes you nowhere. Positive energy is going to take you everywhere. This is one plant, one love. Take it there. This is my brand. This is what's great about it. This is why you want to take it. Option's yours.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, it just goes back to your content strategy and your keyword strategy. If you are looking to start blogging, there's, like he mentioned, a lot more research that you have to do, because if you're blogging, it has to be strategic and point back to you. So you want to be informative, you want to tell facts. You don't want to just throw your opinion out there. I think this works, and this worked for me, so this will work for you. You have to really do your own research before you start blogging and make sure you have that content strategy in place and your keyword strategy for it to be effective. Otherwise, you're just going to be like your competition, just throwing things out there.
I see a lot of blogs where, thank you. I see a lot of CBD brands, is that working? They have a blog, and instead of talking about their product in their blog, they're talking about, okay, here's 5 ways to help you sleep better, and then they're just inserting their ad. Is that more of a safer route? They're not.
That's
is
that
kind of
advertorial.
Indirectly making a claim or not?
And in my experience, doesn't work. You lose the reader. You really have about 15 to 30 seconds. We don't have a whole lot more time than that because somebody's got to get down to TikToking or LinkedIn or whatever the heck else they're doing, okay? My kid's screaming at the bathroom door. So really, I don't believe that works. I mean, you have a consumer that buys into that, and I see a lot of it. It's a formula. And I see it over and over and over again. The top 7 this, the top 20 that, the top 10, okay, one more top whatever, and I'm going to be like, bleh. Right. It doesn't get my attention. Really, there's trends in advertising and marketing in social media if you watch them, right? And we started with, okay, my favorite, you don't believe in blah, blah, blah if you don't click here. You're not a blah, blah, blah if you don't click there. Okay, whatever. Not clicking, waiting for lightning to strike, okay? I think not overcomplicating it. Tell your story. Tell your grandmother's story. Tell his story and her story.
I didn't think we could say that.
You
It's a
can't.
story, it's a positive story, and it helps you.
But you can. It's creative. Remember creative writing in the 6th grade? Okay. And they gave you 12 words to use, and you had to make them all work in 3 paragraphs. I got really good at that. It's the same concept. So you can say, oh my God, okay, my husband, hip replacement, okay? And the first hip replacement, they gave him narcotics. It took 12 weeks to get the guy back to work and off out of bed. And, I wanted to kill him. He was horrible. Second hip replacement, I literally mowed down the nurse and said, keep your opiates. Here's your CBD capsules. You're going to take these. He was back to work in 5 weeks. I can say that because that was a fact. He never once took a narcotic. That was a fact. I didn't say the CBD did it. It's all about
Wordplay.
wordplay, yes.
Well,
Okay.
it's wordplay and it's also disclaimers.
And it's
You know, like,
disclaimers,
you know,
right?
If you look at all these
Right.
sites, all of them have a little, fine print that says.
We do.
We're not saying that this, I mean, and here's the other thing for those of you guys who are thinking about blogging, a little tidbit. So when you're in publishing, and that's what you are if you're a blogger, most publishers by now already know what they're gonna be talking about next year, all 12 months. They've already done their content calendar. So it's not every day you're like, oh my God, what do I blog about today? It is, let me look at the year. Okay, what's hot in January? What can I focus on that's, how can I connect? February, I mean, for people of color, Black History Month, what can we do for that? March, Women's Month, what can we do for that? April, whatever, Awareness Month, what can you do for that? So blogging is great, especially if you have a site, if you have a tribe, if you have a list, like I was mentioning, gather your own people. In order to keep your people engaged, you got to give them news they can use. Oftentimes, people use blogs, and blogs can be a blog where people log on to a website blog. It could be an email newsletter where you're sending out to your readers, or even if you are a guest on someone's show or you're doing your own advertising, whatever your content is for that particular month, whatever your focus is, that's your focus, and then that's how people. October is, what is it? What breast cancer awareness? We know November and December holidays. So just sit back and think about if blogging is and communicating in that way with your people is something that you really want to do. It takes consistency, and the best way to be consistent is to pre-plan. And the best way to pre-plan is to research. It'll take you maybe a week just to sit down and think about January. What's your frequency? You're doing it every month, or you're doing it every week? What are you going to talk about week 1, week 2, week 3? And it doesn't have to be uber specific, but it needs to be general enough that as you get closer to those dates, you can fill in the gaps. Right? So any major publication, any magazine you pick up, they all have content calendars. They're probably done in October is about the time they do it. They send it out to editors, and then that's also how, if you have guests, if you want to have a guest blogger, or if you want to interview someone, that content calendar is what you share out to publicists and people who book people and all that kind of stuff so they can get in where they fit in. Oh, April, they're talking about this. This is for me. Oh, June, they're talking about kids, summer, whatever. This is my, and that's also important for you to, if you want to be published, request content calendars. If a publisher doesn't have a content calendar, then I'll be like, I'll think twice, because they're going to be running you all around. But most of them will. So either you're putting out yours, or you're getting someone else's, and then you're figuring out how to kind of share your story in both those kinds of ways.
So we are actually up on time, but I did promise you can ask a question. So I'm saying this, if we could keep our answers a little short, or everyone else is free to go. And before I let you ask that question, in case everyone does leave, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for coming here today, so much for sharing all of that insight. I think we all got some really good key takeaways. Let's all get back to the drawing board, do some research, focus on being best in class, focus on what outlet or vehicle do we want to utilize our time and our resources as far as advertising, what works best for you, and who is your target market. All right.
Hello. So my name is Adelina Sanchez. I'm the owner of Leafly Therapy, and I specialize in medical massages for those that suffer with cancer, fibromyalgia, all that good stuff. So I definitely am trying to push the needle really, really far. My mission is to merge both industries to push to the medical forefront. I say all this to say that I am debating a lot, or maybe I'm holding myself back. But as far as like advertising and getting myself out there, so I decided to do like a podcast where I can actually talk about my massage experiences with my clients, because that's where I'm getting the majority of my data, from blood pressures that I'm taking before and after sessions, to even just our conversations with my clients. Would this be something wise for me to do as a licensed massage therapist, though, to put out this type of information?
So the question is, are you putting your license at risk by putting the information out?
Yeah.
No. You're not.
That was a bit short and sweet. Well, thank you guys again, everyone on the panel. Thank you guys for coming today. Thank you for sharing all of that information. I know I got a lot out of it myself. I hope you guys did too, and let's on to the next.